We are back in Goa, and this time we are driving the all-new Maruti Suzuki Fronx. Now on the face of it, this looks like a younger sibling of the Grand Vitara, which is an SUV. But if you scratch below the surface, you'll realize that it's based on the same platform as the Baleno, which is a hatchback. So the question is, what is this thing? The Fronx is a slightly controversial name, no doubt, but when it comes to its design, I think Maruti has absolutely nailed it because it is a good-looking car. It looks quite beefy, and from the front, it looks like a mini Grand Vitara, which is a good thing because it gives it that SUV-like stance. In fact, I'd go on to say that it looks more beefy and it has got more appeal than the Grand Vitara, which I think looks a little flat from the front. So this is quite curvy. And it has got similar setup, that triple LED daylights and the split headlamp setup, which are at the bottom. The grille is slightly different, but like I said, it definitely looks beefy. Now if you come around the side, you'll notice the Baleno resemblance because it's based on the same platform. So the footprint is exactly the same. The wheelbase is 25-20 millimeters, which is the same as the Baleno. So it is a sub 4 meter hatchback or an SUV like Maruti likes to call it. As you'll notice, it is slightly jacked up. It has a ground clearance of 190 millimeters. That's 20 millimeters more than the Baleno. And the wheel size is exactly the same. It's 16, but it has got higher profile tires. So this has got a 195/60, whereas the Baleno gets a 195/55. So that is a minor difference, but it is there. Now you'll also notice it has got these squared off wheel arches, which look quite good, which give it a more sporty or rugged sort of look. So this is about the side profile. And I think overall, I have to say it looks quite proportionate. And Maruti has done a great job because this definitely feels like an SUV. It has got that road presence. But if you come around the back, this is my personal favorite design element on this thing because the rear three quarters, I think it looks the best. It has got the seamless LED and the overall look of the car is also quite beefy. But overall, you can't deny that this is a premium looking SUV and it is definitely going to get a lot more attention, and this is going to be one of its key USPs. On the inside, this is a familiar affair because the interior is more or less the same as the Baleno. The dashboard design, the features and equipment are more or less identical to the Baleno, apart from the fact that this gets a black and brown upholstery as compared to black and blue in the Baleno. So the fit and finish, it feels quite premium, it is quite good. And of course, the plastics around here in the lower section, they are a little flimsy, but that was something that we also noticed in the Baleno. In terms of features, you've got this nice big touchscreen. I think it's one of the best in the segment. It's very crisp to use. It is high resolution, and I think it does everything beautifully. It's quite intuitive to use as well. It also gets wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay connectivity, and there is also a 360-degree camera. Now it's the same as the Baleno, so the camera quality is not that great, but functionality-wise, I think it does the job. And at this price point, I don't think you can complain that much. It has also got automatic climate control. You've also got a wireless phone charger. The new bits that you see here, it is the new automatic gearbox. So there's a new gear lever, and you've also got these paddle shifters behind the steering wheel. The dials are exactly the same. They're analog and they look and feel quite nice if you're driving enthusiastically. And you've also got head-up display in the top-end variants. So these are the features that are offered with this car. And I have to say, it feels more or less complete in that regard. Of course, there are some features missing, like there's no sunroof still. I think that's a miss because the sunroof is in demand across segments in the country. So I think it should have been added in a car like this. This is an SUV and a premium offering, but maybe Maruti can add that later on. In terms of practicality and space, again, it's the same as the Baleno. So it is a very spacious cabin. There's a lot of room. The ergonomics are spot on. The seating posture, every time you sit in the car, everything falls in place very easily and it feels perfect in that regard. The basics are all sorted. You've also got this sliding armrest over here. So it is very comfortable, very helpful if you're going on long drives. If I have a small complaint, it is again the seats. These are the same as the Baleno. They are quite spacious, but they feel very flimsy and there's not a lot of support. So I think this is a common problem in all of the Maruti cars and they haven't fixed it in the Fronx as well. At the back, it's the same story. It definitely feels like the Baleno in the sense the space, the legroom, the headroom, everything feels identical to the Baleno. The only difference here is that this being a high-riding vehicle, well, of course, you sit a little more upright and in that way it definitely feels more comfortable. What's more, even the ingress and egress are also better than the Baleno. So I think that definitely is a key difference between the two cars. In terms of features or equipment, at the back you get AC vents with blower speed control and you've got two USB Type-C charging ports. You've also got a lot of storage spaces. You can keep your 1 liter water bottles here. So it is quite practical in that regard. But overall, I have to say that the sense of space here is definitely better than the Baleno. Now, where it loses out is in terms of the boot space, because this has a boot space of around 308 liters, whereas the Baleno has 318 liters of space. So why is that? It's because this car has got big wheel arches and they eat into the boot space. So that's where it loses out. And again, it has the same problem as the Baleno's boot, as in the loading lip is quite high. So if you've got heavier bags and luggages, so getting them into the boot can be challenging. But overall, if I have to sum it up, I'd say personally, this definitely feels a little more practical than the Baleno. And that's only because this is raised by 20 millimeters. So I think that really plays part in making this cabin a little more practical. Coming to the driving impressions of this particular BoosterJet engine, but first things first, we have experienced it before, so it's the same 1 liter 3-cylinder turbocharged engine. And the first thing you notice about it is that at idle, it is not refined. It does have those thrummy 3-cylinder vibes. That is the first thing you notice. Now on the go, again, it's a turbo, so there is a fair bit of lag, especially below 2000 RPM. It is a little dead in that zone. Now even after 2000 RPM, well, it's not that it picks up speed very briskly, because from 2000 to 3000 RPM, it feels like as if it's still waking up. Now once the engine spin past 3000 RPM, that's where all the performance comes gushing in. And from 3000 RPM to 5000 RPM, well, that's where the meat of the power band lies, because that's where this engine feels the strongest. And it has a red line at 6200 RPM. It can rev all the way up to there, and it feels quite sporty also, so you're going to enjoy that. Now coming to the drivability, especially in daily driving conditions, well, with this automatic gearbox, it is a little bit of a compromise, because there is that lag and the gearbox is not that responsive. So part throttle responses, they're not as eager as you'd like. So if you see a gap opening up, you want to exploit it, you want to be there, it feels a little laggy in that sense. Now similarly, if you want to pull a quick overtake, the downshift also takes time, because this gearbox is tuned for efficiency and it's not that aggressive, I'd say, even in kickdown. So that's something that I noticed, especially with this engine. The other thing is, it has got manual controls, it has got paddle shifters as well, but still it doesn't feel that sporty. The shifts aren't lightning quick, because this is a torque converter, it's not a DSG. But even by torque converter standards, it doesn't feel quick. It is seamless, but it's not very quick. Now, of course, it holds the gear, it doesn't upshift. If you keep it in manual mode and you rev it all the way up to its red line, it's not going to shift up. So if you're in a mood to exploit the full performance out of this engine, you can do that, because you can rev the nuts off this engine quite literally. Now, I drove the manual version earlier in the day, and I thought that was much better, because the gear ratios are very well defined, and Maruti's manual gearbox, well, they are a work of art. I think they are the best in the business. So you enjoy driving that car because you can extract the maximum performance out of this engine. And personally, I think turbo engines operate in a very narrow window. So I think in this case, a manual is better suited, because you can work the gearbox yourself and you can get the performance that you want, whether it's daily driving or you want full performance. So between the two gearboxes, I definitely pick the manual. Of course, if you are looking for effortless cruising, if you want to drive this car in the city, it is very comfortable that way, so then you can look at the automatic. Now speaking of comfort, the ride is very supple. It feels taut, but it doesn't feel uncomfortable. So it's the right amount of firm, and you enjoy driving it as well, but over bad roads, it just glides over everything. So this is something that we've noticed with the Baleno, this is something we noticed with the Brezza and the Grand Vitara as well. So in that regard, this is no different. It is poised and it feels very planted. Now coming to the handling, this is a Baleno underneath, so it handles really well. It definitely feels very precise and it is fun to drive. But yes, compared to the Baleno, because the ride height has been increased, it does feel a little soft and there is a fair amount of body roll. But it doesn't feel sloppy. It is a very decent handler. So overall, you have to say that this is a very neutral handling package, as in it's not boring, but at the same time, it's not sharp or it's not going to jolt you or it's not stiff. So again, Maruti has found the right setup, and I think in that regard they know Indian roads and Indian customers well. So overall, the ride and handling balance of this thing is spot on. With this version of the BoosterJet engine, Maruti has introduced smart hybrid tech with this engine or in the Fronx. So of course you'd imagine that the fuel efficiency is going to be great, but remember, this is a small turbo engine, so the moment you ask for performance, it is going to drink a lot of fuel. And that's the case with this car, because today we were averaging at around 10 to 11 kilometers to a liter. So it is thirsty if you ask for performance. If you drive it normally, if you drive it carefully, of course, the fuel efficiency is going to be better, but still, I don't think it's going to be as efficient as its naturally aspirated counterpart. At first, the Fronx did come across as a confused product, but after driving it, I have to say that it has a good balance. You see, underneath it is a cost-effective hatchback. That means it's also fun to drive, it's quite economical, and it's going to be affordable as well. But on the outside, it looks like a mini Grand Vitara. It has that SUV look nailed. So on the whole, if you're confused between a premium hatchback and a sub 4-meter SUV, I think the Fronx is the way to go.